hunting ghosts, but now Zach Boggins finds himself haunted by something much harder to escape. A real-life scandal that's exploding across the internet. Just yesterday, his ex-girlfriend, Holly Madison, revealed in a now viral series of Instagram stories that Zach cheated on her. Not once, not twice, but with 7 different women. These aren't just accusations. Holly claims to have been contacted directly by the women, who each brought their own receipts, messages, evidence, timelines. Suddenly, the quiet breakup they had a few months ago now looks very different. The man once seen chasing spirits in abandoned asylums is now being chased by a scandal of his own making. For years, Zach Boggins has sold himself as a serious investigator of the unknown. But now, it's not the ghosts that people are questioning. It's his character, his choices, and the double life he may have been living while projecting something entirely different to the world. Zach Boggins and Holly Madison's relationship always carried an air of mystery. 2 people from very different worlds orbiting each other. They started dating in June 2019, after Holly was spotted visiting Zach's haunted museum in Las Vegas. Rumors followed, and then came quiet confirmation. They weren't the type to post public declarations of love every week, but those close to them said it was serious. Over the next few years, their relationship flew under the radar, appearing solid but mostly private. Occasionally, subtle signs, photos, sightings would surface, hinting they were still together. Still, no one really knew how rocky things had gotten behind the scenes. In March of 2025, Holly addressed the relationship on her podcast, Girls Next Level. She confirmed that they had officially split, noting that the relationship had become very off and on over the past year. This time, though, it was final. They'd even unfollowed each other on social media, something they had never done before, even during past breakups. It felt like the clean end of a complicated chapter. No bitterness, no accusations, just the quiet closure of a relationship that had run its course, but that calm was deceptive. Beneath the surface, something darker was brewing. Holly hadn't said much publicly, but behind the scenes, she had been noticing things, inconsistencies, stories that didn't add up, absences that felt too convenient. She kept those concerns to herself until May 10th, when everything changed. That day, Holly took to Instagram and released a cryptic but scathing message. She didn't name Zach directly, but it didn't take long for fans to put the pieces together. In her post, she said it was a perfect day for her and a terrible one for her ex, who she had just discovered was cheating on her with at least 3 other women. She ended the post with, "Never too late to find out." Lowell. The tone wasn't mournful. It wasn't sad. It was cold, cutting, and confident. She knew what she had uncovered, and she was ready to let the world know. The shock of her first post was only the beginning. As the day went on, Holly continued posting updates, and the number kept growing. First, it was 4 women, then 5. By the next morning, it had jumped to 7. 7 different women had allegedly come forward to Holly, each one with proof that they had been romantically involved with Zach Boggins during the time he was with her. She didn't hold back. One of her most brutal posts included a photo of a Costco store, which she captioned, "Some people were cheating in bulk." That line quickly went viral. Cheating in bulk became the catchphrase of the scandal, a perfect blend of disbelief and dark humor. But behind the sarcasm, there was something deeper. This wasn't just infidelity, it was systemic betrayal. Holly wasn't vague about the situation either. She repeatedly emphasized that these women brought major receipts. That means hard proof, text messages, photos, and more. She didn't release them publicly, but the implication was clear. The evidence existed, and that evidence painted a picture not of a man who made a mistake, but of a man who had carefully maintained a double life. This wasn't a one-night lapse. This wasn't a misunderstanding. 7 women didn't just randomly appear out of nowhere. They reached out to Holly. They came forward with timelines, messages, and stories. From the way Holly framed it, she hadn't known any of this during the relationship. It only began unraveling after the breakup, when these women apparently felt safe enough to share their truth. That's when Holly began to connect the dots. Each story, each screenshot, each inconsistency from the past fell into place. She didn't set out to destroy him. But once the truth came to her, she wasn't going to stay silent either. Suddenly, the quiet breakup in March looked like a smokescreen for something much more serious. What was once a private relationship now looked like a public deception, and Holly had the evidence to prove it. As the revelations picked up speed, the internet reacted fast. Support for Holly poured in across every platform: TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit. Comment sections lit up with praise for her honesty and condemnation for Zach. People were stunned, not just by the fact that he cheated, but by how many times. 7 women, one user wrote, "That's not cheating, that's serial fraud." Holly's post struck a chord. She wasn't crying, she wasn't pleading, she was in control. That kind of confidence hit hard. The internet loves a public reckoning, but it loves it even more when the person holding the receipts is calm, collected, and unapologetic. Holly fit that role perfectly. She didn't attack. She exposed, and the public rewarded her for it. Even celebrities weighed in. Holly posted a TikTok that quickly went viral, and in the comments, YouTuber Trisha Paytas wrote, "I couldn't imagine cheating on literally the perfect woman." Holly responded with a simple, "Thank you, Trish," and 3 pink hearts. It was subtle, but the message was loud. She had people in her corner. Meanwhile, Zach Baggins remained completely silent. No statement, no denial, no attempt at damage control. As the scandal spread, so did the headlines. People magazine, E! News, and others began reporting the story. What started as an Instagram post had turned into a full-blown media event. Articles carried headlines like, "Holly Madison says Zach Baggins cheated on her with 7 women," and "Ghost Adventures host accused of cheating in bulk." The phrase itself became a meme. Social media exploded with jokes, but the message underneath remained clear. People were not on Zach's side. The scandal spilled over into his professional world, too. Fans of Ghost Adventures began questioning everything. If Zach could lie to someone he loved for years, could he lie to his viewers, too? Some began revisiting episodes with a more skeptical eye. Others said they were done watching altogether. His credibility took a hit, and it wasn't just about the cheating. It was about trust, both personal and professional. Meanwhile, Holly seemed to only grow stronger. Her posts remained calm, confident, and factual. She didn't need to scream to be heard. The truth was loud enough on its own, and as it stood, she had all the proof she needed. As the story continued unfolding, the public support for Holly Madison only grew stronger. People rallied around her not just because of what happened, but because of how she handled it. She didn't break down. She didn't lash out. She simply posted what she knew and let the facts speak. That kind of clarity hit hard. It was raw and empowering, especially for women who had experienced betrayal but never had the platform to confront it. On every social media platform, users were commenting things like, "I've been there, good for her," and "This is how you take your power back." Holly wasn't just someone airing dirty laundry. She became a symbol for calling out deception head-on. Her sarcastic, controlled tone struck a nerve. She wasn't looking for sympathy. She was just telling the truth, and people respected that. What made the reaction even more intense was how completely silent Zach Baggins remained. Not a single word, no statement, no denial, no attempt to tell his side of the story. And that silence spoke volumes. In situations like this, when someone is being accused so publicly, And with such specific details, most people expect some kind of response, especially when they're a public figure. But Zach said nothing. His social media went quiet. His team didn't issue a press release. He didn't try to clear the air or offer an explanation. He just vanished from the conversation, as if hoping it would all blow over on its own. That silence created a vacuum that people filled with speculation, analysis, and criticism. And with each passing hour, as the scandal dominated social feeds and news headlines, the expectation grew. If Zach Bagans was innocent, people assumed he would want to clear his name. If he was guilty, people expected an apology. But what no one expected was nothing. That total silence only made everything Holly had said seem more credible. And the longer he waited, the worse it got. Silence became its own form of admission. And it fueled the idea that maybe Holly's version of events wasn't just one side of the story. It was the whole truth. And Zach had nothing to add that wouldn't make it worse. In the days that followed, people also began connecting the dots between Zach's personal life and his professional controversies. For years, there have been whispers in the paranormal community about his credibility. Former colleagues have suggested that he used his influence to shut down rival shows or push people out of projects. One of the most talked about examples was Nick Groff, a fellow investigator who had worked with Zach in the early seasons of Ghost Adventures. After Nick's departure, fans speculated about drama behind the scenes. Nick never directly named Zach, but he strongly implied that someone had used their position at the network to get his projects canceled. It didn't take much for people to read between the lines. In that context, the cheating scandal wasn't just a personal failing, it became part of a pattern of control, manipulation, and self-preservation. Fans began rewatching episodes of Ghost Adventures with new eyes. Moments that once seemed intense and thrilling were now being questioned. Sudden door slams, mysterious whispers, shadows that moved on cue. Were these real, or were they staged for effect? One widely shared post online pointed out a suspicious moment where a supposedly haunted object moved slightly after Zach shouted, "Did you see that?" A slow-motion replay revealed a flicker of motion near the base, possibly a string or wire. It wasn't proof of fakery, but now even the slightest inconsistency became suspect. People weren't just watching ghost footage. They were investigating it themselves. The silence from Zach on the cheating scandal bled into how people viewed his work. If he was dishonest in love, could he be dishonest in his investigations? If he kept secrets in his personal life, did he do the same on set? These questions were no longer just for tabloids. They were for every fan who ever bought into the world he created. Ghost Adventures was built on the idea of searching for truth in the unknown. But now, the truth that mattered most wasn't about spirits. It was about the man behind the camera. And more people were starting to wonder if the ghosts were the only things being fabricated. As more people started turning on Zach Bagans, the cheating scandal became just one part of a much larger problem for his public image. People began compiling lists of every controversy he'd been tied to, from past crew members quitting under mysterious circumstances to accusations of temper issues on set. What was once brushed off as eccentric or passionate behavior now looked more like manipulation and control. Stories that had floated around in online forums for years suddenly seemed more believable. Some fans recalled moments from interviews and behind-the-scenes clips where Zach appeared impatient or dismissive toward his team. At the time, those moments were chalked up to stress or the pressures of filming. But in the wake of the cheating scandal, those same clips were getting a second look, and they didn't feel so harmless anymore. Among the most damaging narratives was the claim that Zach had faked evidence for the cameras. An alleged behind-the-scenes recording had surfaced months earlier, where a voice that sounded like Zach's could be heard instructing someone to move a tablecloth off-camera. The authenticity of the clip was never fully verified, but in light of the cheating revelations, people started believing it more. The timing was damning. If Zach Boggins could lie to Holly Madison for years, maybe it wasn't so hard to believe that he could lie to his audience too. That clip, once dismissed by many as a fake or a joke, was now being circulated again as possible proof that not everything on Ghost Adventures was as real as it seemed. This left his fan base divided. Some longtime followers refused to believe the accusations. They defended Zach, saying that his private life had nothing to do with his work, but many others weren't so forgiving. Comments flooded old videos, asking whether they were watching a genuine investigation or a well-rehearsed performance. Some unsubscribed from his YouTube channel. Others left negative reviews for his haunted museum. The fallout wasn't just online either. People started speculating whether networks would keep backing his projects, or if he would slowly start to lose influence within the paranormal entertainment world. For Zach, this wasn't just a rough patch. It was a credibility collapse, and he still hadn't said a word. As the scandal continued to grow, some viewers started seeing a pattern in Zach Boggins' behavior that extended far beyond just infidelity or ghost shows. What people began to notice was something deeper, a contradiction between the version of Zach presented to the world and the version of him now being revealed by those closest to him. On television, Zach is the alpha figure. He commands attention, calls out spirits, walks into the darkest parts of abandoned hospitals and prisons with unwavering conviction. He's not just a host, he's a symbol of control, confidence, and confrontation. But in real life, when real people came forward with real claims of betrayal, he disappeared. That disappearance cracked something open. Because if the Zach Boggins viewers knew from TV was fearless in the face of the supernatural, why was the real Zach silent in the face of a scandal? The silence following Holly's accusations mirrored the same kind of avoidance people claimed they'd seen before, like when former colleagues made cryptic references to betrayal or manipulation, only for Zach to quietly continue on as if nothing had happened. That tactic worked in the past. When drama erupted in the paranormal community, Zach often stayed quiet and let time bury the story. But this time, the personal and professional blurred in a way that couldn't be ignored. For fans, it started to feel like a bait and switch. If the man who demanded the truth from ghosts couldn't offer the truth about himself, then what was the point of any of it? That's where the deeper questions began. Was Zach Boggins just playing a role this entire time? Had the mysterious, dark, sunglasses-wearing ghost hunter always been a performance? The more people looked back, the more things started to feel manufactured. The intense stares into the camera, the dramatic declarations of energy shifts, the quick temper that seemed to flare every time someone disagreed with him on an investigation. In the context of the cheating scandal, those moments didn't look brave anymore. They looked insecure, even defensive. The persona no longer felt like a reflection of who Zach was. It felt like a barrier, hiding a version of himself that he didn't want anyone to see. And the more that version came into focus, the more his audience began to pull away. The cheating scandal, the resurfaced allegations about fake evidence, and the growing divide in his fan base all pointed to one central issue: credibility. And for someone like Zach Boggins, credibility is everything. His empire, from Ghost Adventures to his haunted museum and numerous television specials, is built entirely on trust. Trust that he's showing something real. Trust that he's reacting to actual paranormal events. Trust that he believes in what he's presenting. But now, that trust was severely cracked. And cracks in credibility don't take much to turn into full collapses, especially when your brand depends on being taken seriously in a world already filled with skeptics. The truth is, the ghost hunting community has always existed on a thin line between belief and disbelief. The only thing keeping it from tipping was the sincerity of its biggest voices. Zach was one of those voices. Now people weren't just questioning the ghosts, They were questioning the ghost hunter himself. At the same time, there were still fans holding the line. They insisted this was all overblown, that Holly had an agenda, that 7 women coming forward was too neat a number. Some even claimed that the scandal was part of a larger plan to cancel Zach and destroy his reputation for reasons unrelated to the truth. But as more time passed and Zach continued saying nothing, those defenses started falling flat. The silence became harder to justify, because even if everything Holly had said was exaggerated, wouldn't someone with nothing to hide want to defend themselves? At the very least, wouldn't they want to speak to the people who had followed their work for decades? Then there was the haunted museum. What had once been a proud achievement in Zach's career now became a symbol of exaggeration. Reviews started shifting. People left comments suggesting that the museum was more theater than truth. Some even questioned whether the objects inside had the histories they were claimed to. This wasn't just a PR crisis. It was a credibility crisis. His empire wasn't just about ghosts. It was about perception. And now that perception was falling apart in real time. Zach Bagans wasn't just facing a relationship scandal. He was watching the foundation of his public persona start to crumble. By the end of the week, what began as a single Instagram story had evolved into a full-scale collapse of public perception. Zach Bagans, once considered the face of mainstream paranormal investigation, was now the subject of endless online discussions questioning his character, his honesty, and the future of his career. And the most shocking part? He still hadn't said a word. No apology, no denial, no explanation. As more people learned about the 7 women Holly Madison said came forward, the silence felt less like strategy and more like guilt. In today's digital world, silence isn't neutral. It's evidence. The absence of a response became the response. There was no sign that any of the women had gone public themselves. Their identities remained private. But Holly's confidence and her use of the word receipts gave the story weight. If she was lying, she was playing a dangerous game. But no one accused her of seeking attention. Her tone was too calm, too knowing. The public believed her because she didn't ask for belief. She simply laid it out and let people make their own conclusions. That's why it hit so hard. The story felt real, and Zach's refusal to acknowledge it only made it feel more real by the day. Questions still swirl about what happens next. Will Zach finally say something? Will one of the alleged women step forward? Will the networks continue to back ghost adventures? Or will they start distancing themselves from controversy? As of now, no statements have been issued. No changes have been announced. But in the background, the damage is already being done. Trust, once lost, is rarely regained. And Zach's brand wasn't built on entertainment alone. It was built on belief. If Zach wants to repair what's broken, he'll need more than a ghost hunt or a social media post. He'll need truth, because that's what people are looking for. Now, not in haunted basements or abandoned hospitals, but in the man who spent years telling them he always sought it. Right now, they're asking, was that ever true?